Chapter 15, Better Dungeon Layout, in which we make the next dungeon level layout more interesting. The Level Map Generator. We have improved the level monsters, but our level layout is still the first simple attempt. We'll now build a better map layout. We can surely do better than our initial randomly scattered heap. Our intention is a collection of rooms connected by twisting corridors. Where some tunnels connect to rooms, we might place doors. A door is a barrier which humans can operate, but non-sentient beings cannot. We shape this design to aid balanced combat. We want to set up an environment for simple combat with simple enemies. The player should have a fighting chance. Once we have demonstrated that the player can handle and survive combat there, we can then proceed to increase the difficulty. An important part of this is map designs that give the player some degree of control, separated rooms, and isolated enemies. We need an approach for how to make those connected random room boxes. There are infinite ways to build level maps, and later we will try out more of them. For now, our intention is to get the most result with the least amount of effort. A classic least effort is alternating between placing a random room, then extending a random corridor from it, then placing another random room at the other end, and then repeating this process a number of times. That's not the approach we'll use now. Instead, we'll place a lot of small random rectangles. These rectangles will have an inner center of black wall and a border rectangle of whitish floor. The trick here is that the floor borders will always constitute traversable corridors. In this way, the combination will be traversable too. There is a caveat, in that it is possible to place a disconnected rectangle that doesn't touch the rest of the model. One way to protect against this is to place many, which is not a robust fix. Another way is to run a post-process step which deliberately reconnects any disconnected map parts. A third way is concerned with whether the initial map is all walls or all floor. If it is all floor, the disconnected issue cannot arise. We will add a further complication to the mechanism. We initially said that we would make the interior of rectangles be blank wall. Well, actually, we won't. At random, we will sometimes instead make the inner part be hollow floor. This way, our map will be a mix of open areas and closed-off wall blocks. We'll do one final complication. Instead of only having hollow and solid rectangles, we will have a third variant. The outermost edge is still traversable floor rectangle. We again still give that an inner edge of wall, but now we'll poke one or two holes in that wall edge. Further inside, we then leave it hollow. In this way, we achieve a kind of room or house with doorways. We might even make the holes as actual doors that you can open and close. The above constitutes our design. It requires a couple of parts. We need a function that can draw the hollow rectangles. We also need a function that can pick such a random rectangle. And we need a loop to call the two. An implementation of loop would be 15 map gen 1 that looks like this. So we loop n number of times, call the pick method, then call the draw method, and the filtered boolean is randomly true or false. And the pick method we can do like this. And within the rectangle we specify, it'll pick a random point. Then the draw method we can do like this. And it just takes the rectangle that we specify and draw it according to our plan. For this we'll need the make doors method here, which says if it's not a filled room, then we will try to make doors on the second points. And we'll also need this test caller. And Because make doors would use the door glyph, we'll need to create the door glyph. So we add open doors and closed doors to the glyphs. And of course we also add these in the glyph inf. And to now see it, we can create an index 15 showgen, which looks like this. Beware above that the method draw is more active than its name might imply. It iterates over all cells in the rectangle. The outermost edge cells will be drawn as floor. The second inner edge is always drawn as walls, and its points are collected in the seconds array. We track that inner wall in seconds so we can later punch some door holes in it. And the cells further inside are either drawn as solid wall or as floor, depending on the filled boolean being true a third of the time. Finally, from the seconds array, we then pick between 1 and 3 random points to punch out as doors. And the result will look like this. To activate this for the game, we can do so through 15 builder 2f by using this new level generator for the next level. So we clone 14 builder 2e into 15 builder 2f, and we change the make map method to this, which will use the new map gen for level 1. And we can now test play it by using this index 15 map gen. As you do so, it looks like this. How does it feel to play? Be aware that you will have to reach the second level to see it. Doors. So far, the doorways we generated were always open. They are open, empty doorways that everybody can always pass through. We can turn them into actual doors that you can open and close. This could be useful for combat. You could close doors to block monsters from following you. Some monsters, evil wizards, would be too clever to be fooled by this, but others, like animals and beasts, would not know how to open a door. What would it take to support this feature? We're already placing open doors, so we might update that mechanism to place both kinds of doors. We must ensure that open doors are possible and that closed doors are not. This entails updating blocked and opaque on map cell. We must then give the user some actions to open and close doors. And that is pretty much it. We'll discuss further complications of doors in a parting section, but here we will only support these features. Doors design. It seems all we need to do is to give the player a command to open and close doors. We can start by observing that we can use a single command for both. Any open door we use it on will close, and any closed door it will open. We need a way to figure out which door we should act on. What if the user stands next to several doors, for example in the hallway or intersection? We could pick the nearest door at random. That's not a good way. In combat, it could be critical that we open or close the correct door, and several doors might be at the same distance. A naively cool approach would be to simply walk into the door. It clearly indicates what the user intends and seems like a good lazy user interface interaction. Just bump into whatever until you get what you want. But this does not work when we need to close the door. Then we would just walk through the doorway instead of closing it. So we'll drop that idea again. Still, in another game with doors that only open, that idea has merit. Here, we'll just let the player specify in which direction he wants to operate a door. So he will activate the door command, it will then ask for a direction, and if it finds a door in that direction, it will try to toggle that door between open and closed. We'll extend pass player with a key action to operate doors. The door action will activate a pick a direction screen, into which we pass a follow-up command as an argument. That is, if the user correctly picks a direction, Then that follow-up command will be executed with that chosen direction as input. And that follow-up command is of course the actually door open close command. We'll need to implement that toggle door command. Note that the pick a direction screen may be generally useful later for other non-door related stuff. Because the door command will sometimes issue user warnings, we must also extend our message log with a flash method. A flash is a message that we don't log. We'll first take care of that flash feature, so we don't have that to worry about. In message log, we change the message method to now be this. The trick is just that flashes aren't added to the archive. We then add this method to game interface. And then we update the game 2 with these methods. And to fix up game 1 and game 0, you can just give them an empty implementation. Our direction picking screen and our command will need to communicate. The screen must somehow transfer the chosen direction to the command. To achieve this, we update 09 command interface to include a set direction method, so it now looks like this. On the face of it, this is bad news for all other commands. Presumably they neither have nor care about directions, and it seems we are now forcing them to deal with a direction they don't want. We handle this by instead updating the base class for commands. This way, all our commands derived from command base will have a default handler for set direction. The downside is that the compiler type checks will allow us to call set direction on commands that don't really support them. Instead, we'll only see the error trigger during runtime when command base catches it. With this support for set direction in command interface, we can implement a direction picking screen. The 15 command direction screen. The door command will look like this. It simply inspects the map cell position in the specified direction relative to the mob that issued the command. If said cell contains an open or closed door, we swap the cell contents to contain the opposite, a closed or open door. If the cell does not contain a door, we instead display an error with the flash. You might wonder why we pass the monster to the command instead of simply the position of that mob. After all, don't we just need the position to figure out what is going on? This concerns design philosophy. It's a generally good principle that we pass the acting entity to command. It lets us pass any effects of the command onto the player, for example a door trap exploding in his face. It also lets us check his abilities and resources. Maybe his hands are slippery or freezing numb or shaking from shock, so he can't operate the door handle. Maybe he's encumbered by carrying too much. Maybe he's dazed, confused or blind. Maybe he's out of mana. To fit this into pass player, we must do this. We have one final important thing to do. We must update the blocked opaque method in 07 map cell so door closed also blocks movement. With this, you should be able to open and close doors by pressing C when standing next to one. You can test it out by running index 15 map gen again. Notice how you and mobs can hopefully pass through open doors and hopefully not through closed doors. Doors, passing thoughts. It is possible to do many further things with doors. Doors can be stuck. Stock doors cannot be opened, and if stuck, it takes violence, a kick or bash or shield bash or magic to force them open, which typically leaves them broken. You can make a door stuck by jamming spikes into it. Doors can be broken. A broken door cannot be closed. A broken door is a terminally open door that might as well not even be there. Doors can be dissolved, which means they fully disappear. You can argue that a broken door acts identically to such a disappeared door. The difference is in which game actions will cause it. Doors can be locked, which is akin to being stuck. The difference is that they can be unlocked and relocked with a key or a lockpick or a rogue. They may be so sturdy that unlocking them is the only thing that works. Doors can be hidden and secret and must be searched for and discovered. Doors can be trapped and will be dangerous until you disarm them. Doors can be created, typically with a spell. This allows things like throwing up a tiny protective cage room of doors around your character in combat. Doors, both hidden and normal, can be revealed with the spell of Detect Doors. Depending on your mindset, some doors could also be magical and act like in a teleporting way, somewhat like stairs, possibly being one-way affairs or even one-time use.